Welcome to Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly, where we dive deep into the conversations that matter most to your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Utenham, a passionate advocate for brain health and wellness. And here on this podcast, we explore candid conversations about life, health, and the stories that shape us. Whether it's about mental health, sports, or simply navigating everyday challenges, we keep it real, raw, and relevant. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. With all that you were experiencing, you were saying that, let me tell you why I needed to see a speech therapist. And so in my mind, I'm like, we've been talking about why you should have seen a speech
Yeah.
therapist, all these concussions.
Yeah.
But that right there speaks to so many people don't know, go to a speech language pathologist because they are the cognitive rehabilitation experts. I'm thinking about all of the things that you're describing, and I'm thinking like, okay, like what kind of exercises, and I'm doing my nerdy thing over here.
Yeah.
But speech therapists work with people who have had concussions, traumatic brain injury, and so that's what I was thinking in terms of, have you worked with a speech therapist to go
Yeah.
through your routine, to do exercises to help you with memory and that fog that you talked about. But yes, the organic mutism would be a fantastic rationale to also see a speech
Yeah.
therapist. And you said that you were your wife works in the schools, and so you got to connect with speech therapists that were in the school setting. Can you tell me some of the things that they encouraged you to do?
Well, I just kind of talked to some of them that that work with students who like struggle with saying like their R's and things like that. And so a lot of what they said was for me was a lot like I do with riding bulls or even with comedy is lean into your weaknesses. And so when you're practicing, what am I weak at? So what are some words I struggle with? And so just finding those words and saying them over and over again and making myself do them slowly, and so a lot of me things that make me stutter. So I'll try to do a lot of things with T's and D's and B's and F's and things like that just to constantly say them. C's is a big one for me that I'll catch up on sometimes. And I don't stutter long like a lot, but I'll do like a double hitch or to where like even my wife's like nobody notices, but I'm like I notice because I can tell that I'm doing it. And so like I just did it a second ago when I said when I used this word with C, and but it's so just with them was just repeating things. And so kind of my routine that I do is I do it like working out. I start slow, ramp up, and then ramp down. And so I start in the morning. I do just Sudokus and word games. I rotate them out. Um, Solitaire, just easy games I can do on my phone. Puzzle games, just things that don't really take a lot of thinking, but I can kind of wake my brain up. And then I kind of ramp up a little bit from there and then I pull up the dictionary app on my phone and I just grab a random spot and I just read out loud and I just read through everything and pronunciate it and talk it. And then I get my Bible out and I'll always read one or two chapters and do that as well and get that because I'm killing two birds with one stone. And then I'm ramped up and I do the Peak app. I don't know if you're familiar with the Peak app, but it's an app for brain health. And it's doing the same types of things when you go into a therapist's office and they're having swipe left, right, or right for sort the colors and the shapes and it happens fast. And I try to do that as fast as I can. And I try to put myself in the top 99% of everything because I'm competitive, but I just push hard on all of that and do as fast as I can. And then I ramp down and I'll do all of the Wordle and strands and stuff from New York Times. I do all of the LinkedIn games and then I end with something easy like Monopoly Go or just a game to just kind of relax and go with it because video games has become a huge therapy for me. When Minecraft first came out, the neurologist was like, I want you to try to play Minecraft because why pay us thousands of dollars to play with blocks and you got unlimited blocks? And that has been one of the best therapies that I've ever experienced was that because it makes you think through layers of building and layers of you don't just go out there and you have to think through everything and reaction and hand-eye coordination. And so I try to do things video game related that I can kind of get. So I ramp up, ramp down, and that's kind of my routine that I do every day. And then if I'm struggling with something specific, I'll really focus in on that.
Interesting. So you were able to, so small educational moment. So, one, I want to say thank you to the speech therapists that you did get a chance to connect with who offered some guidance. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. And that makes me so happy because I want school based or pediatric speech therapists to be empowered to work in that space. Now, you were reaching out to them
And I could be doing it
specifically.
all wrong. So I'm this
Well,
is what works for me. So you are the expert. So if I'm doing something wrong, please tell me
no,
because
no,
that's
no.
yeah.
So I mean, it's all about tailoring to what's going to work for
Hmm.
the person. So, or we call it person centered therapy, but there are multiple different kinds of speech language pathologists. So a lot of times people will hear, oh, speech therapist. A lot of times they're instantly going to the schools because that's where there's a lot of popularity around speech therapists. So shout out to the school-based and pediatric speech therapists. We love you so much. There are also speech therapists like myself. I'm a medical speech language pathologist, and so I work with the traumatic brain injury patients, patients who have dementia, who have had a stroke, things like that. And so a lot people like yourself, millions of people have no idea that you
Yeah.
get your bell rung, you fall off of a horse, get bucked by a bull. Speech language pathologist, that should be somebody who's on your list of somebody that needs to be a part of your team. And unfortunately, a lot of medical doctors, neurologists included, are not familiar with the scope of practice of speech language pathologists. And so even when I've gone on the sidelines of football games and just raising that awareness, because like you said, you can't do much with what you don't know. You don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. And so raising awareness is a huge part of what I'm doing, as I know that you're familiar with. But when I'm on the sidelines, they're the orthodox, they're like, what the heck are you doing here? Why
Yeah.
why would I refer anybody to a speech language pathologist? What can you do? And then when I'm talking to them about the exercises and things that we can do, they're floored and they're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like that's exactly what we've been needing. We need to be able to send athletes and people to experts who can help to actually get into the nitty gritty of what's happening with their brain and facilitate those exercises. So you're in the same boat as a lot of people where it's like, but I commend you for your genius intuition. I don't know if you can call it intuition, but for you to create this program for yourself and to be diligent and consistent and dedicated enough to do it every day to rehab yourself back because you speak beautifully, if I do say so myself, professionally speaking.
Yeah, well, speaking is my life, and so I kind of have to, and I've always had the gift for gab. So if I lost speaking, I don't know what I have in life, to be honest with you. So
But
I
think
like a
about
good
how many,
conversation.
yes, but think about how many people take that for granted, the
Yeah,
ability to speak, the ability to communicate what it is that you want. And I
yeah,
see that on the medical side for people who have had a stroke and, they completely lose their speech. And if they are trying to say something, it can come out sounding, completely different. But you lost all ability to speak with the organic mutism. And for you to rehab it back, I am absolutely impressed, especially for you to not have a dedicated speech therapist who was providing you services. These are people that got some guidance from and you carried it out and took it from there. That's phenomenal.
it's that cowboy work ethic, and I think that Morrison work ethic, and just the because our I've 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 got so many heroes in my life that I'm able to glean from. My brother, at 18 years old, I think I pale in comparison to what he has to go through. He broke his neck in a saddle bronc riding accident, a rodeo accident, and he's paralyzed from the armpits down. And to see him now be an extremely successful CEO in one of the most successful rodeo businesses in the world. In fact, in Las Vegas on Friday, they just broke all kinds of records at the South Point. He's a broker for bucking stock between buyers and producers and all that stuff. And they just sold a gelding horse for $187,000 as a bucking horse, and that's just unheard of for a gelding. Stud mare maybe, but not a gelding. And but he just the whole sale was over $1.5 million that they just did during the finals. And so like to watch him be able to adapt, because where he's paralyzed at, he has very limited mobility. And so even his hands and stuff, and he builds websites and he has to sit there. He can't use fingers. So he builds it, just taps his thumb across the keyboard and just takes his time and gets it done. And so I watch someone like that that's able to work hard every day and do things every day, and I'm like, why should I sit here and mope? And it's one of the big things I talk about. My keynote's called "Knocked Out but Not Down," and it's not so much as being knocked down but not out. It's what about those punches that hit you that you don't see coming? The best boxers in the world, no matter how prepared they are, and they may never lose. Sam Alvey just the other day has never lost a karate match, and he got knocked out. And I mean, he's probably the most prepared fighter out there. And all it takes is one punch. So what happens when life hits you that hard that you're laying on the mat trying to figure out what just happened? Your life is changing as a result. So my keynote, "Knocked Out but Not Down," is what can you control during the change? I can't control what's happened. I can't control what anybody else thinks. I can't control what anybody else says. I can only control myself moving forward. And the three things I can control is my attitude, my work ethic, and my mentality. And if any of those three stink, I'm not going to be able to push through this. I'm not going to be able to teach myself to speak again if I wake up in the morning and start moping about, well, poor, pitiful me, or my attitude's like, why is this happening to me? Or if I just like, I'm going to take today off because I just don't feel like working. I'm tired. You know what? Most of those days I was tired. I didn't want to work, but it was that work ethic of if I want this to happen, I have to have it happen. And changing that mentality of what positive is coming out of this? Hey, I'm still alive. I should be dead. I could be dead. And here I am living. So focusing on what I can. And then every time there was a little bit of a breakthrough, focus on the positive with that, and controlling my attitude, my work ethic, and my mentality, and being able to push through all that. And so I try to use my story to encourage others that whatever you're going through, you can push through it. It's a choice you have to make. Your life may have set you behind the starting blocks more than others, but you ultimately are who can control your own destiny. And if any of those three stink, if your attitude stinks and you get bitter and you're mad and you start blaming other people and you start looking at other people's circumstances, or you're looking at, I wish I had what that person has, not realizing the work they did that you don't see, and you're letting bitterness rule your attitude, you're never going to be able to improve. You can get bitter or you can get better, but you can't be both. You have to choose which one you want to be. And so pushing people through whatever it is you're dealing with brain, some people that are listening to this, it breaks my heart when some people are working hard and they're not having the breakthroughs that I'm having. And it's nothing, I don't feel like I did anything different than they did, or that it's anything more special. Like I said, to me, it's work like it depends on me, pray like it depends on God. And God's not done with me. And I'm able to go and speak into people's lives and impact their lives and meet them where they're at, be able to communicate from somebody with concussion issues, and hopefully be able to help somebody else through that. But just because you're not seeing that breakthrough as quickly or as fast as you want it to happen, doesn't mean that good isn't there. Find that good to focus on. What is positive. If you're in a tunnel and there is no light at the end of the tunnel, you give up quickly because it's dark. But even if you've got a tiny speck of light, grab onto that speck, and that's what you can move towards, because then you'll notice that light's getting bigger. You won't even notice it because you're moving forward towards it. And then one day you'll be like, hey, I'm outside of this tunnel, because you've been focusing on the light instead of the darkness all around you. So train your mind, not just train your mind to speak or train your mind to do, but train your mind to fill it with positive things, because your brain's a computer. And when you fill it with negative, when you fill it with all this negative stuff, and you go on Facebook and you love drama and you fill it with all this drama and go into the comment section and all this negative, or you go on the news and just want to watch nothing but negative, when you step out into the world, your brain has now been computed and told to look for negative. So now you're going to see the negative in everything around you. And when you're dealing with a brain injury, you can't afford to have that as holding you back from moving forward. You have to train your mind. I have to fill it with positive stuff, because if I want to see myself improve through this, and I want my brain to heal, and I'm speaking for myself, and everybody's different. I'm not trying to say, hey, you need to do this, but this is something I had to come to that realization of. I had to cut things out of my life because I can't afford. I had to cut people out of my life because they love divisiveness. And I'm like, I cannot afford to have you adding that stress to my life because you're addicted to drama. Your addiction to drama should not affect my ability to get past what I'm going through, if that makes sense.
Are you on the hunt for fun, functional, and diverse therapy materials for both your pediatric and adult clients? Well, let me put you on to something I absolutely love and use in my private practice: Konversation. If you haven't heard of it yet, Konversation is a digital platform designed to support speech, language, memory, attention, executive function, and more. It's science-backed, clinically effective, and works beautifully for both teletherapy and in-person sessions. But what really makes Cognishine shine? It's completely customizable. You can tailor exercises to your client's specific needs, whether you're targeting speech sounds, supporting recovery after a concussion, or strengthening cognitive skills post-stroke. It's become a game changer in my sessions, and my clients absolutely love it. So, if you're looking for a tool to elevate your therapy, check out Cognishine and tell them Dr. Kelly sent you.
Absolutely. And talking about, all that we just did, I would like to unpack the mental health perspective of things. So a lot of times I will hear, I think there's a misconception that when you are experiencing a brain injury, well, one, it's invisible. And so you look fine, Nick, you look great. A lot of people who are suffering in silence look fantastic. And I think that's, society's expectation. Well, you look great. What could possibly be wrong with you? Quote unquote wrong. But then there's that perspective, you hear about athletes or people who don't know about what's happening in the brain when it comes to injury. And the automatic assumption is, oh, there's a mental health struggle that's been going on. They've really been struggling with their mental health. But mental health and cognitive health, while they are related, they are two different things. And so I would like to ask, and, for those who may just be tuning in and listening for the first time, cognitive health has to do with executive functioning, memory, thought process, sequencing. So things that a lot of times, just like we take speaking for granted, we take the ability to think and, navigate through our days for granted. And so I have worked with patients who it takes them 3 hours to get ready in the morning, not for vanity purposes, but because they may have, clothing in one hand and a toothbrush in the other, and they're thinking, what do I do next? Or, they're repeating ADLs or activities of daily living that they have already done, and they only know, okay, I don't need to take another shower because the shower floor is wet and so is my hair. So I'm guessing that I've already bathed, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so, we can
That
take
happens
those
a
kinds
lot
of
with me.
okay, so
I've taken showers and been in the shower shampooing my hair going, what is different about this shower? Like not able, like, and not a little bit in the shower, like way into the shower, and trying to figure out, and then realizing I never turned the water on and being there doing everything, and then be like, oh my goodness, like I've been in here for 10 minutes taking a shower without any water,
Wow,
like, so
what is
just
different about this shower?
But you brush your teeth and then you go put it in your mouth again. You're like, what? This is wet. How did this get wet? And you're like, oh, my teeth are already like that happens so often. The quick trigger to get angry is something I talk with a lot of rodeo guys about with concussions, because your trigger gets a lot shorter, and it's so much easier to get mad. And that's another reason I'm always trying to fill myself with positive, so that I'm fighting. That is my biggest fight and struggle, is not getting mad. That is probably my biggest struggle I have, because it is so easy for me to just flip on a switch. And I hear people all the time say, well, it's just because of the concussions. And I'm wanting to say that's a crutch, and that's an excuse for you. You can fight against it. I'm living proof of that, because if I let it go, I would be just a miserable old curmudgeon just walking around mad at everybody. But I can't do that to my wife. I can't do that to my kids. I can't do that. I think the biggest testament to all of this is, number one, my spouse being so patient and everything with it. Is with all of that, my wife and I have been married 20 years. We haven't had one fight. And it's not because we haven't disagreed, not because we haven't got mad at each other. It's because we've chosen to not communicate while we're angry, because we know we're going to say things we're never going to be able to take back, and it's going to hurt both of us, wound us deeply. So we separate, calm down, and then get back together. But that's a lot harder to do once the concussions start adding up. And so when I do snap, my wife being patient and understanding, that's a cognitive thing. That's not him. Don't take it to heart. Me realizing it, so it's both of us, and being like, I'm sorry, give me a second to calm down. Because it takes a while. When I get mad, I have to convince my brain to not be mad, because I will be mad for days, not hours, days, if I do not force it. Like it ruins my whole week if I let myself get mad. And so those type of things you don't see. And so you just automatically think, oh, well, that person, I see a lot of bull riders, people like, oh, well, that guy's just a grumpy old man now. It's like, no, he's probably had a lot of concussions and he doesn't understand how to control that new function in his brain of not being able to control his emotions as well. I'm gonna admit something right now that makes me feel less cowboy and less manly, but I can't even watch a commercial without crying, and I'll be like these stupid concussions, just tears rolling down my face, and my wife's laughing at me because she didn't even cry for Redford and Groves, and so here I'm over here, it's like, why are you crying? It's like, well, that dad just gave him that toy, and it's like I can't help it, like I can't control my emotions, and it's frustrating for me, and it
Can
makes
we
me
get an
mad.
example of a commercial?
Oh, I can't think of one right now. It's so tough. Like, I can tell you though, I walked in, my son was watching uh How I Met Your Mother, and it was like the third to last episode, and I just got to thinking of how it ended, and I just started bawling, and I was like, I just was thinking of how it ended. I didn't even do the ending, and he's like, "What are you crying about?" You'll know. You'll figure it out. You'll know. It's
Just the
like
memory of
just
it.
the memory of it. Rudy, if I see them carrying him on the shoulders, I'm done. I'm done. Like I can't. Eight
Oh
seconds. Eight
man.
seconds wrecks me. I have not watched 8 seconds in years because that movie wrecks me because that is a movie of somebody whose dream was to be a professional bull rider in his life and it's true story. And I've got numerous friends that are characters in the movie and numerous friends who were the bull riders in the movie back when they filmed it in the 90s and I can't wait because it's just my brother, both of us, we both. But that's one of those things that people don't see, and you look at it and you're like, well, that's a change, and I have to tell myself it's not a weakness because I'm always like this tough, that John Wayne blood of I ain't gonna cry at nothing, and stub my toe. I'm like I said, I broke my back. I was back riding bulls in 8 weeks, but then now I'm watching some commercial and I'm bawling my eyes out.
Can't hold it
Especially when it is
together.
with moms because my mom after my mom passed away, I have a hard time with that. And so those are the type of things that I think people really struggle with. And it's just some of the things I've just learned. I'm like, you know what, this is who I am, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that because I'm not going to beat myself up over that. My wife, it's in the rodeo world, you tease the people you love the most, and so I know her laughing at me because she'll like I said I'd rather you do that than come over and be like, oh, my poor baby. Because I was like, don't do that. Like I'd rather you laugh at me crying than coddle me and stuff. And so it really takes and it's a big focus of my book and a lot of my speaking is when I'm talking on concussions, because my main keynote's not, but I do talk on concussions some places, is the importance of not just you but your spouse buying in full. They have to buy in, and you have to be patient with your spouse, and your spouse has to be patient with you as you both navigate through this. And that's not something that just ends overnight and fixes overnight. It is a constant. And honestly, it has made my wife and I's marriage stronger because it's something that it's made us be more conscious than most couples are about things like that. Most couples, they just snap and then they snap back at each other. This is something where we're like, hey, this is weird. This is something where I deal with. Let's be more patient with each other through this. And so, but I would not be able to do anything I'm able to do right now if it wasn't for my spouse buying into it and being supportive of me as she is.
Well, that is, well, love to your wife, absolutely, for the patience, and that's amazing. Not having a fight in 20 years, I think that speaks to maturity, some good mental health and mental health work that has been done. But the things that you were describing were not mental health issues; they were cognitive health
Yeah.
issues that you were addressing. And one, I just wanted to hop back. Your neurologist can diagnose you with suspected CTE. This is not medical
Yeah.
advice, ladies and gentlemen. That is just what the term is, because yes, you
Yeah.
do have to have passed away to have a diagnosis of CTE. But for those who are living now with research and studies and billing codes and things, now it is suspected CTE. You can ask him about that if you so choose.
Well, and
But
they're trying to come up with technology now to find the tau
now,
proteins that build up the clumps and that eat the holes in the brain. And so there's technology moving in that direction, but still, yeah, perfect. I love
yes.
that.
Listeners, I often get this question. So yes, that is the truth. Right now, doctors are working on, and researchers, scientists are working on the ability to diagnose CTE definitively while the person is alive. Right now, the only thing that we have is suspected CTE. So if you are noticing symptoms and they align, then that is something that can that you can be diagnosed with. But there is obviously still a lot of work that needs to be done in this space, a lot of research that needs to be done, but there are we are making excellent strides forward. It just takes time because, as you said earlier, we know a little bit about the brain. There is so much more that we need to learn about it. But I want to ask you, you love this sport, and even now, like, it's still tough to go to a live event, as you were talking about. So what would have changed your mindset in the very beginning? Is there any kind of, because through my nonprofit Brain Talk Foundation, we raise awareness about this, and that's the thing. People need to know, and not to shy them away. Don't play these sports. Athletes aren't going anywhere. Sports aren't going anywhere. I want people to be aware so that they can do with the information what you will. If making the best decision for yourself or your family, what that looks like. Is there any amount of education that could have shifted your mindset? You started very, very young.
It would have taken, honestly, someone who's been in the sport and is dealing with it to come and say the importance of letting yourself heal. That's the one thing that because cowboys by nature, you put a brand of toughness on people, and so anything you do outside of that is you get branded very quickly. Like, even just as simple as, I was one of the first guys to wear a helmet, and the criticism that you got for wearing a helmet, just that was, I mean, it was. But my mom was like, "You ain't riding bulls if you ain't," because I was 11 years old and caught a horn between the eyes and it split me clean open to the bone. So she's like, "You're not riding bulls anymore unless you wear a helmet." So I wore a lacrosse helmet because they didn't have bull riding helmets yet. And then Brett Thurman got killed in the 10th round at the NFR. Bull stepped on his head and killed him, and they invented the Bull Tough helmet after that. And I had one of the very first ever prototypes of the full helmet, and people were starting to play around with face masks and stuff. But even then, it was like the ridicule that you would get of wearing a helmet was just, and most people would just give into I got a friend I'm thinking of right now that he had a helmet, and he gave into the ridicule, and he had a bull that I had ridden a few times. I call him Nightmare, and he's known for jerking you down. And I told him, "You need to put that helmet on." And he's like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna tough it out." And he ended up breaking like 15, 16 bones in his face when that bull jerked him down. And it ended his career. And it's like that thing of, like, you have to understand your body is more important than anybody else's opinion. And the funny thing is the people who ridiculed me, the people who I so wanted their opinion to matter, the people who, they are nowhere in my life. Because as soon as I got hurt, they moved on to the next person. Because it was like I was of no value to them anymore. And so they moved on to the next person, and they could care less what I'm doing with my life now. And so all these people that I was trying to impress and pushing through and trying my hardest to ride so that they would think I was tough and ride with a broken back and get knocked out and get on again. Man, he's so tough. Like, cowboy up, look at him. They're nowhere in my life right now. And so I try to talk to these kids and talk to even professional guys of listening. And there's times where, okay, Kai Hamilton at the NFR gets knocked out, gets back on the next day, wins the round. Everybody's like, "Well, do you think he shouldn't have got on?" It's like, no, he's chasing the world title. Like, I get that. He doesn't want to sit in his bed, 30 years down the road and say, "I didn't give it the best chance I had when I had the chance." I get that. But your junior rodeo ain't the NFR in the 7th round and you get knocked out. If a football player gets knocked out at the Super Bowl and he goes back in, I'm not going to hold that against him, because this is what I've been working my entire life for, and I'm willing to take those responsibilities. But some podunk, backyard football game ain't worth it. And so understanding and what I'm loving to see right now is I'm seeing some of the biggest names in rodeo. I'm seeing them show up during football games doing mental health commercials and doing concussion commercials, and guys that are highly respected, that you can't look at them and say, well, that guy ain't tough. And they're starting to go out and say things and start to speak out about it. And really it took Ty Posabon was a bull rider that had concussion issues, and he killed himself when his career ended. And it took that to wake the rodeo community up, because up until that point, I was speaking out about concussions and getting massive ridicule from it, massive support. I was getting both, but I didn't care. I was willing to put it out there, but I would get a lot of guys who were professionals at the time would call me and say, hey man, I'm dealing with the same thing, but don't tell anybody I called you because I don't want other people to know it. And I would talk with them and I would help them through it. I would have wives call me while they had a shotgun in their mouth, and me having to talk them out of this, because they're like, we know you can talk that language because we know you've been in that place, and that a concussion related version of that's not depression. It's like your brain just goes, hey, I need to do this today. And so trying to get their mind off of that. And so I had all that, but then when Ty killed himself, it as horrible as that was, it was one of the best things to happen to rodeo, because then Facebook was flooded with wives, not the contestants, but wives. My husband deals with this. My husband, and they started talking about it. Then you started seeing the contestants start talking about it. Then you started, now it's like, holy cow, I've got friends that I've been around my whole life have never once mentioned that they have this issue. And they know I'm talking about it. They know I'm publicly about it, and they never once mentioned it because there was such this fear of ridicule, of being looked down on. And we're at a place where we can change that now to where, like, hey, it is important to let your brain heal. Like, it is important to let that take that extra time. And so if there's anything that would have changed for me, it would have been taking that. I don't know if it would have been accepted at that time, to be honest with you, because like just wearing a helmet, just protecting your head down. I mean, look at everybody making fun of guys in the NFL right now wearing the Guardian cap. I think it's the greatest thing. You got the guy from the Texans the other night, just lit Rashee Rice up, and did a ironic hit and run and lights him up. And then everybody's like, oh, big tough guy with a Guardian cap. It doesn't make him any less tough. In my mind, I think he's tougher because he's willing to push through the mental thought of everybody's going to ridicule me this for me, but my mind is more important. My brain is more important than any of their opinions. And I'm still going to go out there and I'm still going to hit guys hard. I'm still going to tackle hard, but I'm going to do what I can to protect my brain, because that is important to me. And my future kids and my future grandkids, they need to be able to spend time with me and not have to deal with a vegetable because I was too concerned about whatever other people thought.
Absolutely. Well, we can talk about the Guardian cap just a bit. There are, stats and information that's coming out to show that it's not as effective as.
And I was curious because it's not a blow to the outside of the head; it's inside the brain. But
yes.
It's at least.
I mean, but that's all helmets. I mean, yes, you want to do what you can to help. But I use an egg analogy where, your brain is like the yolk of a raw egg and it's not fixed to the skull, as you talked about how your brain is loose now that you can fence from sneezing. But I understand what you're saying. For what this player is believing, he's going to go against the ridicule and backlash that he could get for that. And so that is definitely admirable. Again, you don't know what you don't know, which is a huge part of, what I do in raising awareness around this topic.
Hey everyone, Dr. Kelly here, founder of Brain Talk Foundation, and I need your help. Every donation helps us raise awareness about brain health and concussions, especially in underserved communities. We're going into schools, talking to students, athletes, parents, coaches, educators, and speech-language pathologists, making brain health education accessible and impactful. Brain Talk Foundation is a 501c3, so every donation is tax deductible, and every single dollar makes a difference. Support this mission. Visit braintalkfoundation.org and donate today. Together, we're saving brains and changing lives.
you bringing up spouses is a huge part of what I want to do, because they are, they know the athletes better than the athletes know themselves a lot of times. And so I want spouses to have that education. I want them to have that knowledge so that they know what signs and symptoms to keep an eye out for, so that they know what that means. And also, you were talking about how, you can get angry, in a flash, and you seem to have the ability to control it, to do whatever strategy works, whether that's taking a moment, stepping outside. But there are athletes who don't have that skill. Athletes, there are people who don't have that skill, but because of the changes in their brain, they can get violent. And I do think that people like Aaron Hernandez and arguably OJ Simpson, I think that because of the repeated injuries that they had, they end up with that flash, and they act, and then now they're in the news. They're these violent, big scary
So
individuals.
so here's my counter argument to that.
Okay.
I could easily be that place too if I didn't try before. I've had as many blows to the head as them. I've gotten just as angry as them, but I haven't pulled out a gun and assassinated somebody. Because I choose to feed my brain with as much positive stuff as I can, and not feed it with that type of stuff to where my brain goes to there as the first reaction.
But if that mindset and education and awareness were taught to more people
Yeah.
and spouses, I think that we would see a significant shift. And my hope is that we can move
Yeah.
away from, dying by suicide. We can move away from domestic violence. We can move away from child abuse. And, the children, they're affected by this as well. And so I want to get into a space where I can provide that education and awareness to spouses, because I think the spouses are a huge key to what makes athletes' worlds go around.
Well, and I think it's very important that they understand that of what you're feeding the brain, like that because I'm able to combat it because I don't wait until the moment to combat it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, and so that to me, that's something that needs to be taught, and something I try to teach to that side of it is I don't wait until the moment I snap to be the moment that I try to, like, I don't wait until my kids do something before I use that as the moment to tell them not to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I try to take my brain as that same mentality of I'm trying to train it, because I know it is a massive weakness, and I know it is a trigger that happens immediately. And I can tell you right now, if I get down, because I go through mood swings really bad. So I'll go through moments to where I'm just depressed and I'm just down. And if I get in that mode, it is so much easier for me to trigger anger immediately and want to get violent, angry, like want to punch the wall, want to throw something, want to that quickly, because my mind is dwelling in a mindset of being down. Does that make sense? But
Yes.
when I take that time to try to feed it with positive and try to and when I say feed it with positive, more or less cutting as much negative out as I can is when I'm not sitting there, listening to some tape of you are a beautiful man, and it's like not that type of stuff, but I'm trying to feed it with positive things and finding things, go on Instagram, and there's good news movement and all this different stuff where there's like good things going on around the world. And if I want to scroll through Instagram, yeah, I'm definitely going to scroll through people getting hurt because it's hilarious to me. And I feel like I've earned the right to laugh at them. But I'm also, I'm going to scroll through a lot of good things happening in life. And I'm going to feed my brain with that, because I want my brain to have this positive outlook on things, so that when I do want to get triggered, I'm able to calm down quicker. But I notice when I don't do that and I let myself get kind of down and a little depressed, I mean, my first reaction is to punch the wall or throw something. And it's like, whoa, it's like a wake up, like, okay, I need to get back into this, get control. So that's something that I 100% agree needs to be taught. And the spouse is very important in that side, and teaching the mind that just because you have concussion should not be an excuse to be an idiot. It should not be an excuse to be a jerk, should not be an excuse to be rude to people, should not be an excuse to be violent to people, should not be an excuse to hit your spouse or your kids or whatever that is. That still falls on you. And so even if you've had those hits, You need, if it is something that happens so easily, then if you have to make the decision yourself, that I'm going to put extra work in before I get there to not let myself get there as easily. I still have to fight it off. I still have to make the conscious decision at that moment. But it's easier when I'm filling my brain with positive than when I'm watching the news or watching people on social media talk about politics and talk about what's going on over there. When I'm feeding myself with that, I get angry a whole lot easier than if I'm trying to just cut that stuff out of my life and be like, you know what, I'm not going to feed anything into my brain that's going to cause me to get there. Because I'm going to tell you something, put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger and you realize how quickly that can happen. That's a wake up call to me. And that's something of, okay, I cannot let myself ever get to that point again because of how easily my brain told me that this was something that I had to do and that I was doing it as a benefit for my family and for my wife and kids. That I was convinced it was something that was going to be helpful to them because I'd let myself get to that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. But I also think that you have a unique mind over matter that is, I will say different, but I really want to say stronger than others. And I say that because for those who don't have a Mensa mind, for those who have not walked your walk with faith, so you know your life, your
Yeah.
brain, your experience is different, and so I think about those who, had a different upbringing, had a different background, and then they have suspected CTE, but it could be stage 3 for listeners. There are 4 stages of CTE. It could be a more severe case of, if they're living suspected CTE. And so when you have the CT, when you have those tau proteins, we're getting a little nerdy here, listeners. Essentially, those parts of the brain start to die. And so when a lot of times, part of the reason I started the foundation, Brain Talk Foundation, is because I kept hearing people say, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known. I also hear people say, like, they just weren't themselves. They weren't acting like themselves. But if the pieces of your brain that make you who you are essentially dying or are dead, then you're not going to show up like who you are. And I think that there can be, I don't want to say an excuse, but there can be a reason to why someone shows up and acts like a jerk or acts violent, because just how you were able to drive 13 hours and have no idea, those kinds of things happen for patients who end up doing something violent or ending someone else's life, and then it's like, oh, you did these things. And just like you were saying, like, oh, like I drove 13 hours, I don't even remember that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that there is gray area for that, for things that you
Well,
can't control.
and I totally get that, but I'm still going to do everything in my power to try to help people get ahead of it as much as they possibly can. To me, and what
As you
I'm saying, I
should.
think we're both saying the same thing. But to me, I'm saying I don't want it to ever be an excuse for somebody to say, well, I'm just not going to try because this is who I am. And
Or for people who could
I'm
enable for that same rationale.
well, yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm going to do everything I can to try, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to help other people because I've seen it work in me. And I've had those moments. I walked out of a comedy club and saw some guy hitting his girlfriend, and I woke up on top of the guy. His jaw was broken, his eye socket was broken, my knuckles were broken, and I glazed over. Like I just saw him hit his girlfriend. And next thing I know, they're dragging me off him and I'm beating the living tar out of him. And so I get that. I get that side of that reaction and I understand that. And so but I'm also, I'm not going to let that be an excuse to be like, well, this is just who I am now. So I'm just going to let that happen. I'm going to do everything in my power to not let that happen again. Like to not put myself in that position to happen again. And so I want to try to use my voice to get to people who are in there and say there is hope. And yes, you are reacting that way, and yes, it is happening that way. But it takes some work and it takes some dedication. But yes, things are going to happen and they're going to go. But I'm going to try my hardest to prevent as many of them as I possibly can in me and inspire others to do the same for themselves.
And I love that. And I think that it takes someone like yourself who has those experiences to be able to get into the room with other athletes and say, hey, I get it. So thank you
Yeah.
so much. I mean, I absolutely commend you for that. And when you were describing that defending that lady's honor, I instantly thought about Yellowstone. And so
Yeah.
there are aspects that aren't
Oh,
cheesy. I think Rip would have done something like that.
it's the cowboy thing. I'm telling you right now. Like, yeah, you want to. you want to find the bad side of a cowboy, you do that in public, and you'll find the bad side of a bunch of them. So
Mm.
people want they want to kind of shout down the cowboys because of that, but honestly, it's a code, and it's a world a lot of people don't understand. But I'm gonna tell you, like it's very hard when I know someone is hitting a defenseless person to not do everything in my power to not go over there and even the score. I can't take a punch like I used to, so that's what my wife reminds me when I want to do
Yes,
that. So
sneezing and fencing.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
And shout
yeah,
out to your wife. Yes, please continue to keep Nick safe.
yeah. Yeah, cowboys are
Oh,
tough. Like we'll fight our best friends and then laugh about it and be great again. You just got to get it off your chest. So, and when I say fight, I mean fight. So yeah, it's a different world. It's a totally
well,
different world.
the visuals that I have to go off of are Yellowstone. So I'm thinking yes, but I'm so interested and excited to peek more into this world,
Yeah.
with your assistance so I can learn more and see what is cheesy and what is not. But I'm so excited, and thank you so much for even being willing to walk me through this.
Thank you for tuning in to Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly. I hope today's discussion left you inspired, informed, and ready to take on your next challenge with a clearer mind. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep striving for a healthier mind and a happier life. I'm Dr. Kelly, and this has been another Candid Conversation.